everyone. Welcome back to Purple Nuna Podcast. I'm Stephanie Conti, and I am here with Claudia, to my Louis,
Ooh.
Savanna Lanausse.
Hi.
How you doing,
Welcome.
Savannah?
I'm doing very fresh today.
Oh,
That was
funky
the
fresh? Like,
that
are we
was the
like? What kind
only
of level of
word.
fresh are we feeling?
Like revived.
Wow. Did you like? How did this happen? Because I want to get in on that.
You know, I got a really good iced white mocha from Starbucks.
That's always the best
Like
when like you
better.
go and get coffee or a drink, even like when you go to like even like sodas, like when it hits a little different, and it
Yeah.
feels like your cells are going like like it needed it.
And now I'm having a peach tea. So
Ah,
I'm just feeling
who's
very.
better than you right now? No one. No one.
How are you doing? How's school?
School's going okay. And what I mean by okay is, with COVID and everything, it's
Yeah.
still getting adjusted to everything because I'm fully online. And even though it's fully online, like we were still supposed to do orientation in person, so a lot
Right.
of things were kind of thrown off. And yeah, so I actually want to ask you, this isn't movie related, but what I'm having, I think the hardest thing has been is figuring out some type of morning routine. And I don't mean like makeup or hygiene or anything like that. Like it's just like almost like study slash productive habits, because not only am I trying to do well in school, obviously, but I want to start writing and almost do like a little bit
Ah.
of writing a day. So, and then also working out, because I myself have gained a quarantine quarter. So and I obviously, with me being at a desk all day, I've become
Yeah.
quite sedentary, and I'd like to change that. So
Okay.
what does your morning routine consist of? Because you and me, we don't go out.
No, we don't.
We obey the CDC rules. We don't go out.
Yeah, I am home all day, every day except for my morning drinks. But one thing I realized about me in particular is that I have to space out my activities. Meaning,
Mm-hmm.
I notice if I do one like my homework or when school starts, if I would do my assignments in one sitting, I would burn out quickly. Same with
Yeah.
working out and same with anything I do like hobbies and everything. I have to like 10 a.m. to 11:30 is schoolwork, then break for lunch, then work out, then maybe have some TV time, back to school, then whatever I want to do, watch a movie, do something for the podcast. Because like I said, I don't really work well with one shot things.
Yeah, no, I don't either. Like, I can do a lot of schoolwork if it's all different subjects in a different setting. But like if I'm working for some reason, if it's just like the same thing, the same topic or chapter just for like 3 hours
Yeah.
on end, I'm done. Like it could be, I could have had the best sleep, but if it's that type of thing, I'm completely done. What I'm trying to figure out is, because I think the hardest thing is I found a routine I like, and that was waking up, and this might sound psychotic, but I was waking up 4:45 a.m. and I was eating breakfast, and while I ate breakfast, I was writing a little bit. Then I would go work out cuz I do like the Peloton, and I cannot do that on an empty stomach. I will get dizzy. So that's when I would do that. I would shower, and then I would jump straight into notes and I would get my makeup done and everything and take my time with it. So I would start
Right.
schoolwork at 7 a.m. The issue is that you would think like, oh, she's waking up at 4:45. This girl is at bed at like 9:30. No, I just even if I woke up at like 2 a.m., I cannot go to bed until after 10:30.
Okay. So you might need to modify like 4:45 is very ambitious. Why don't you try 6?
That's what I'm gonna try. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna try first. And I'm thinking what to knock me out instead of doing my workouts in the morning, during my workouts after dinner. So that way it really just tires me out. Kind of having like workout and relax just be like the end of the night.
Yeah, no,
Because,
that sounds
I mean, like, if I work out in the morning, I'm not tired. But if I work out in the evening and then take a melatonin immediately after, I'm snoozing like a little bear cub
yeah.
within 2 hours. So yeah, it really is, and especially like with quarantine too, like
Yeah.
it just really throws off everything. And not everyone, like we live in Florida, so it's pretty gnarly out there. Like, so it's just kind of, hard to get into and hard to figure out, especially like there's no bad way to be productive if you still get up and do stuff. So it's just
Yeah,
figuring out what works best.
I agree with you. I think quarantine also threw off a lot of personally speaking, it threw off my schedule because I would be out a lot more and be doing a lot of public activities. So I
Yeah.
think it's just a matter of like scheduling out your day because for me, my day started like mushing together. Like it would be 11
Yeah.
at one point and then it was 3:30 like 5 minutes later for me. So I had
hmm
to learn to like control my time a lot better. So I feel you on that one.
Yeah, and I like to reserve. Oddly enough, like I'll reserve my movies like for watching anything for Purple Noon in the afternoon during like lunchtime, like during the break. Or I don't know why I can't watch movies at night anymore. Like I'm not in it. But if I wake up early and I watched a movie, like I finished one of the movies this morning, like I can completely like wake me up at like 8 a.m. and I can just watch a movie completely.
I love
Uh,
morning movies though.
Morning movies. It's kind of like the grown up version of Sunday morning cartoons.
Yeah, it's the wave. We have to bring it into fashion.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for that. I've been trying to learn, trying to get everyone else. Like, if you look on my Google search or YouTube search rather, it's like morning routine for this morning routine, and like that's the issue I always fall into too. Like, I will instead of just doing my morning routine, I
Yeah.
will overthink the routine and just fall down into a rabbit hole of watching other people's morning routines.
Makes you feel better. Makes you feel like, "Oh yeah, I could do that." Even if
Yeah,
I
because then
don't.
I'll be like, oh, like I could wake up at like 7 a.m. And then, of course, I see one person who's like a multimillionaire and they're like, I wake up at 3 a.m. and I work out for an hour. And then I go hang out with my kids. And I'm like, I don't even have kids. And like, you're way more, efficient than I
Wait a minute,
am.
but anybody that's waking up at 3 in the morning, you don't let me just tell you, there is nothing that needs to be done at 3 in the morning. You're not
Are
ever.
you saying this to Mark Wahlberg personally?
Yes.
Because he's the only one who I know who wakes up at
Do
3
not
a.m.
care. You're not going to convince me that things need to be done. Okay, 5. I can see like 5 getting up at 5, going for a run. Maybe 4:30. But you're telling me there's business to be done at 3 a.m.? That sounds very shady to me. That
I
sounds
mean,
like
yeah,
that
I
other
could
things going
understand.
on.
Okay, with someone like Marky Mark, I could understand because he has kids, and maybe like he wants to eat breakfast with them. He wants to be able to chill, and a man's like that got to eat all the time, so he's got to make room for the meals. But
3 in the morning.
anyone else, any other normal human being, like even like me waking up at 4:45 is a little bit like okay, that's a serial killer tendency right there. But
You're not
at
you're
least
not
I'm not
getting
like waking up at 3, and just I think you would have to condemn me in a mental
dude,
institution
if
if
you
I was
start
like, I'm
telling
gonna wake up at 3.
if you start telling me that you're gonna get up at 3 in the morning, I'd have like a serious conversation with you on why that would be your choice. I'd tell your parents, I'd tell Zach, intervention. That is when I know you're losing it, is when you're getting up at 3 in the morning.
Well, hopefully that won't happen. Hopefully I can get my stuff together and I won't see a routine and I'm like, Savannah, I'm waking up at 3 a.m. I'm watching all my movies in a row. Like I get everything Purple Noon done in a day. That would be like a 6-hour affair. Christ.
No, we can't do that.
No, no,
That
no.
is
All right.
insane.
All right. I'll start waking up at 6. Maybe I won't though tonight because the first movie we're going to talk about spooky. So the first movie we're going to talk about today is available on the Criterion Channel. It is called The Black Case. Now, it's a little bit harder to find this film. Like if you look it up, like the only place I know of it being is on the Criterion Channel. But it is a French Canadian film, and it's also known as La Malais Noire. And The Black Case was directed by Caroline Monet and Daniel Watchthorne. Came out in 2014. and don't know it's a short film. It's about a 15-minute short film, so I don't have a lot on the cast and crew, but it's about the traumatic events that occur over the period of one night in a Canadian residential school infirmary. In 1930, 8-year-old Elizabeth and her infant cousin are taken from their family and quarantined due to a tuberculosis scare. Now, first of all, if you had told me this, like when I first read this little summary on the movie, I was like, I don't think I saw that movie. I saw something. I don't know what I saw though. So this is like I literally just didn't like I maybe when picking out the movie saw it a month ago, went into it practically blind today. And let me ask you, Savannah, before we get into those spoilerly bits, what did you think of the Black Case?
Oof. All right. So, okay. Before I sound very ignorant here, this wasn't anybody's story, right? Told in like a symbolic, metaphoric
I
way.
do not know. We don't have access to that information, but you know what? Go ahead. Just go through. It's fine.
Because that is the only way that for me this makes sense. Is that maybe this was an actual child's experience and that's how they remember things and they wanted to take a different metaphorical stance on it.
Yeah.
But if someone actually thought of it, then I do not understand what the point of it was.
Yeah, because as soon as I saw, like, when reading that out loud, I literally went, tuberculosis? What? Like,
Yeah.
it really, there's just not, like, there's one thing that this film focuses on, and it's that little cousin and the Black Case, obviously. But there's not a lot of context,
You
and
don't
there's
know why.
not a lot to unwrap.
Okay, yeah, here's the thing though. I'm going to spoil this short film for you guys. I'm very
Yeah, go
sorry.
ahead.
But,
We're in the zone now. We're in the spoiler
basically
zone.
this child sees her cousin be murdered in front of her eyes by a nurse. I'm going to ask you what you think the reason was, but basically the film ends with I don't like I think it was she goes I don't like black cases because my cousin was put in the black case.
Yeah, which is like, huh? Like it
I don't
like
know
I
why
will
it happened.
give
Why did
I
the
would
nurse go crazy? I don't know why the cousin had to die.
so with me what I thought it was. I thought and from this is completely like erasing what the summary actually is. I just thought it was a couple horribly treating their kids. Like like you had these two, you had a nurse and you had a doctor, but there were the scenes and depictions of them kissing and stuff like that. I kind of strayed away from the idea that they were together,
Because like, yeah.
because and then also oh god I was very creeped out when she starts taking the leather paint thing and then methodically just starts going over the black case, like
Yeah.
oh like that gave me the creeps. It was just like very like very sexual with the purse. I didn't care for that
Yeah.
that much, but
Mhm.
you had this doctor and the nurse, and then they come in and check on the kids. The one little baby, the little cousin is just crying, which you would never know are cousins. So I was a
Yeah.
little like, oh, okay.
Until the end where she says my cousin was put in a black case. And I was
Yes.
like, but I didn't even know first of all, okay, they're supposed to be in a hospital, right?
No, it's supposed to be a Canadian residential school infirmary. What is that?
That's like a hospital, I feel like. But where are the other children? Where's everybody else? Why is it just this little girl and a baby and a very, what it seems to be, unstable nurse and a sadistic doctor?
Yeah, like could you imagine your kids have like there's a tuberculosis locust outbreak and you're in the 30s and your kids and your the little niece, baby niece is taken away. And then all of a sudden you're like you find out, oh yeah, they put my cousin in a black case because she wouldn't stop crying. Like what? Like what happened here? There's a lot of stuff to unpack, but no zipper. And I'm
Were
like,
they just
whoa, where
going
do I begin?
crazy? Were they just, was the nurse just, obviously the nurse broke and killed the baby because she was crying, but it didn't,
Yes.
it, I don't know why this woman did that. Besides the fact that obviously they showed she was maybe like unstable and had a very strange fixation on the doctor, but like other than that, like There was
And
no
I
reason.
don't understand why tuberculosis is such a theme in this when it has no show within this film. Like, no one was coughing up blood. No one was displaying what I would have been like, oh, that's TB, or oh, that's consumption. Like, there was nothing of that there. So the fact, I don't know what my parents are watching. Excuse me. But they're probably just screaming over Malcolm in the Middle. That's what they watch during dinner time. So I don't know what episode they're watching, but I don't know what like what it's like. You're giving me a summary, the black case, the summary that is here, and it is the right one. Like, I double checked and everything because I was like, huh? And it feels like it's being like a puzzle piece is being jammed into the wrong spot. Like, this short film could have been something more, could have been something in depth, but this summary I feel does not match it.
I think if maybe this person didn't give us this, like I'm saying, like I keep saying, unless this is like somebody's story, unless this is what somebody witnessed and we just don't know it's a true story and this is their take on it, I could understand that then a little bit more. Somebody made this up because
Yeah.
they had an idea in their head and either didn't project it to us well or sort of went with something else and just
Yeah. Like,
slapped
I
it
wish there
together.
was also, for it being an infirmary, there's literally only two people there.
But
Like, that's what
yeah,
also didn't make sense either. It didn't feel like these two kids were being quarantined per se. It just seemed like these two kids, that is where they lived.
yeah, I appreciate the take, but it just kind of left me confused.
Yeah, no, and I think, like I said, I truly feel like that summary is just like a puzzle piece just trying to fit in. And apparently, like, reading through with some of the comments that's on it, apparently Canada did have a huge, like, tuberculosis crisis in the 30s.
Okay.
I don't know enough about that, but even with a little bit of information, it doesn't bring you that far along into the film. I
Yeah.
thought it was filmed exquisitely, though. I
No,
thought
I
the
did
filming
too.
was fantastic, but it just seems like a very, like, it seems like it's trying to be something when really all it is really perceived as is a very
Yeah.
random short film
Yeah.
with not a lot of context. If there was something like in the beginning, like kind of like Yorgos Zois, where he kind of prefaced things in the beginning and in the end with like text and everything to kind of
Yeah.
go over, like with uh close and not the third kind, like what how he prefaced things in the beginning and in the end. I
Yeah.
feel like that was needed for something like this,
Yeah. Definitely.
because other than like when you just look at the movie, all it is a little girl witnessing her cousin being, or witnessing another baby being killed and shoved in a little case, and
Uh-huh.
that's it. Not a whole lot there, but
If anybody knows if this is a true story, it would really help us a lot. So if you guys know what the director was going for or if somebody actually went through this, let us know. Because that would be a fact that would play really big into the movie.
yeah, I mean, it definitely, like, the summary of it is super interesting, and I do want to know more about it. But for what the film is, for its face value and everything, and like, I review films as if I'm going in knowing like almost nothing, some minor stuff here and there, but almost nothing, and it just doesn't make it. It looks stunning, it looks fantastic, but in terms of how it is, it's definitely one of the lower rated short films I've seen. So, what would you rate it?
Uh, I feel bad because I did like the execution, but I gotta give it like a 6 because I don't have any
I
answer.
was actually feeling 5. I give it a
Oh
5 for the
wow.
directing, but I also feel like because of the summary, they could have done so much more with the summary in the same amount of time. So I just feel like there was a huge disconnect between what it aimed to be and what it was. So I just got to give the score based on what I did see and what I did understand, and that was pretty good directing. So 5 for me.
All right.
Sorry, sorry, Caroline Monet and Daniel Watchhorn. Um, but yeah, so the next film, let's talk about Spirits of the Dead. So Spirits of the Dead is a film that came out in 1968, available on the Criterion Channel. And it is directed by 3 directors. It's kind of like a creep show where it has different segments, but in this case, it has 3 different directors.
Yeah.
And those are Federico Fellini, Louis Malle, and Roger Vadim. And the story is essentially it is an anthology based off 3 pretty niche Edgar Allan Poe short stories. And it has a for 68 quite the star-studded cast. You got Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, which kind of shocked me. I wasn't expecting her to be in a, French film.
Yeah.
Terrence Stamp, Peter Fonda,
Yes.
even, and yeah, those are about the main characters. So the first story is let's go through story by story. Is that good with you?
Very.
Okay. The first story is Metzinger. Oh, it's German. Forgot about that. Metzinger Scene. Metzinger Scene. That's the one with Jane Fonda and Peter Fonda. And essentially, the story of that one is about this princess, and I think what would have been modern day Turkey. Could be wrong, but they were speaking French, so I'm a little thrown off on that.
Yeah.
But essentially, you have this princess who's very. How would you describe this princess? Over the top, overzealous, that's for sure.
Modern day, she was a little insane, clearly.
Yeah, she was crazy. She was crazy, but essentially, she is a evil, crazy princess haunted by a ghostly horse. So let's talk about Metzinger. Sorry, Metzingerstein. There we go, Metzingerstein.
I gotta say, this was my least favorite because, I didn't think, first of all, I didn't think Jane Fonda was bad. Her French, you could tell, was not the best. And I think sometimes it was a little distracting for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't care for the story.
Okay, and why didn't you care for the story? Like, what about it? Because essentially, like, she's just rude, she's callous, she's hypersexual, she's sleeping with everyone, and, trying to, like, lure women in with her boyfriend, or was that her cousin? I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
who was the guy who was
Well,
trying to lure her and the young girl into having, like, sex with
I'm
them?
pretty sure it was like her main man. You
Her
know,
main, or just her main squeeze,
her main.
whether it's family member or not, just her main
The reason
squeeze.
I didn't care for the story is because of the whole. It okay. So I did laugh when I'm gonna get into spoilers. But she sort of like has a thing for her cousin. That's
Mm-hmm.
what the whole story revolves around. And by the way, I'm not saying this was a bad. I'm just saying out of the 3, it was my least favorite.
No, but you do realize who her cousin is being played by, right?
Yes.
Her brother in
I
real
did
life.
not care for that either. I was like, this is they're really trying to stay true to the script here, but I didn't care for it because I didn't think the story went too many places.
I could see that. I did like. I will say I like the character. I like the
No,
character that she
yeah.
did play. I thought it was wild. The outfits were stunning. Like the costume work and the set design and everything were stunning for that segment. But I felt like, and I don't know, like it was just the fact that she started off as such a strong character and then ended up kind
Powerhouse.
of weak. And then ended up
Yeah,
kind of weak.
for
Like
her
what does she
cousin.
do? She rides into the flames on a ghost horse. What?
That's the other thing. I didn't like the ending. I thought, look, if she's gonna kill her cousin in a fire out of jealousy or whatever reason she did, I feel like there should be some character development there. Like I would have liked
Yes.
to see the character do something with her emotions, maybe like make a move somewhere else, do something else with her life.
And also that guy who just came with on the horse and stuff like that. Who is he? He just was like looking at her and she was like, "Who is he?" And then that was it. And then all of a sudden she's riding his horse into the flames.
Yeah, like I said, for me, the story went in a lot of different places it didn't need to go in, and at the same time, nowhere at all.
Yeah. I'm also just not a fan. If you're like, this movie's about a horse, I'm like, I'm out. I'm tired of horse films. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just tired of horses.
It
Like not as
wasn't
like
bad.
horse films, not as a species, but horse films
No,
more
yeah, because
specifically.
it's the same sort of thing that go. I understand. It wasn't bad. Just number 3 out of the 3.
And compared to the next two that we will discuss, there wasn't a lot of to unpack in terms of that. So if we were to rate Metzinger Scene, I have to read it every time. If we were to rate Metzinger Scene as its own thing, what would you rate it?
I'd give it a 7 because I thought even though Jane Fonda, I feel like she struggled a bit with her French. I thought she acted in it well. I like the costumes. I like the sets. I enjoyed the beginning, so I give it a 7.
Yeah, I'm feeling like 6.3 for that one.
Okay.
I like the cheetah. I like you don't see cheetahs a lot in film, so I was like, oh, that's lovely. Um, I like the sets. The directing was okay. I think also it kind of was like not to be a jerk, but it was the weakest film because I do think it was done by one of the out of all three the weakest director.
Okay.
And the director was also, fun fact, Jane Fonda's husband, who also wrote and
Oh,
directed
I see why.
Barbarella.
Look, I see why she had that role then. Because I was
Yeah.
thinking to myself the whole time, not that she is a bad actress. I like her a lot actually, but I'm like, how did she get into this
She's
French
also kind of,
film?
her and Terrence Stamp are kind of the curveballs where it's like you have, you know, these European directors, and although Terrence Stamp is European, he's English. So it was just kind of like they felt like little curveballs, like more like people to just chuck in and make it more interesting. And I definitely think Jane Fonda was added to not only for, to work with her husband and stuff like that at the time, but to appeal to American cinema and American moviegoers.
Okay. Um, let's talk about Daddy DeLon and how great he was. Because first of all, this guy was born to play a psychotic person. He was
Yes.
born to play it. This was my favorite one out of all of them. I'm jumping the gun, but
Okay, so
I
the title of it is called William Wilson, which is the name of the Edgar Allan Poe short story, and essentially it's about a sadistic young man being haunted by his double. So lots more to unpack here. So tell me, what did you think about it? How did the story go through? Take me through it. Take me on a journey, sweet
First
pea.
of all, the story, the beginning of it just captures you from the moment you're like, why is he running into this church?
Yeah.
And he grabs the priest and he's like, I got something to tell you. And the priest is like, after mass. And he's like, no, now. And the story just takes you on a ride because it's basically you see him when he's younger. He's a very psychotic child. And he meets this other child with the same name. And I laughed a little bit because his response was, there can only be one. Can
Yeah.
you imagine that? Like if you meet another Stephanie Conti and you're like, no, that's
I
she's
met
not no.
another Stephanie Marie, and I was pretty fuming. Like I was fuming pretty hard, but luckily she didn't look anything like me, so it was cool.
So yeah, that was his response. And uh, do you want to take it from here because it just gets crazier?
So it just seems like this wild, and then this is also the short film with Brigitte Bardot, which I've seen them on screen before, and I like them. Which also I just gotta mention this when I saw Brigitte Bardot, it's not Bridget, it's Brigitte Bardot on the screen. I was a little bit shocked because of how old she looked. Like, because this is 68, and
Yeah.
I'm used to seeing her very like, I don't know if it was makeup, if it was intent, but her in brown hair, it just made her look so much older. Like at first I was like, is that Claudia Cardinale? And then I was looking through, I was like, no, that's Brigitte Bardot. What's going on? Like I was genuinely surprised. But essentially he goes, it's so a little bit all over the place, but in a good way. Like one of the more notable scenes is when he sees Brigitte Bardot and they do a little poker game or a card game, and she loses, and she's like, okay, fine. Like I think she's thinking like, oh, okay, fine, I'll sleep with you for payment since I can't pay for this. And then instead he just starts whipping her.
Yeah, like Though I think for me the most like oh my gosh part of the movie was when I believe it's the same it's Brigitte Bardot
Yes.
when she's lying on the table and he's sort of like walking around her with the knife.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Oh, this is a different Delon."
Yeah, like that it's definitely a character we haven't seen from him before. At least in my like from what I've seen from his filmography. And even Brigitte Bardot. But so okay, let me ask you this about the him like original William Wilson and the clone. Was there a good and bad, or were they both bad in your opinion?
I don't think I think that's up for interpretation. No?
Hmm.
Cuz I feel like we don't know enough about the double.
Yeah, you only see glimpses of the double, and it's just kind of used to make the OG William Wilson to kind of flare up and be like, no, I can only exist. Now, why is he like, why do you think this man is so obsessed with the fact that he can be the only one? That was one thing I was curious. I was like, what could be? I understand like he was, but I could understand if his character was like shy and like, didn't do a lot and like didn't stand up for himself. I could see him being jealous and maybe saying like, no, what if that person is better than me? What if that person, well, I mean, that could be from his statistics side too.
I kind of interpret it as like at the end of the day he knows what he is. He's a monster.
Yeah.
And I do feel like there's this maybe thing in his head that went like, okay, what if he's a monster too?
Mhm.
I can only do that. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
what if we're the exact same in every single way? That could be something. And I do feel like he's haunted by this. I think maybe that's also like part of his conscience.
Mhm.
Like it's all coming back to get him. All the things that he's done in his life, like that is the one thing that keeps coming back.
Now, let's talk about that ending. So it kind of goes back to him, telling the priest what's going on, and he rushes out, goes to the top of the church, and jumps. But there's a scene right before where he kills his clone with a knife. But then when he jumps off the church and everyone goes to see his body, he has a knife in him. What do you think happened? Let's unpack that for a minute.
I think he killed himself clearly, and I think
Do you think like he fell and accidentally like shivved himself with his own knife? Is that what you
no,
think?
I think he killed himself. I think the haunting was really just his conscience. Like I was telling you, I think it was really just him like all the stuff was finally like getting to him
Getting to him.
all the all the murders, all the crazy things he's done. I think just the double was really just him like and he was haunted and I think the vision of him killing the clone, I think that was just finally killing himself and getting it over with.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking because even the clone at one point when he's dying, he says, like, congratulations, you just killed yourself. Or,
Yeah.
or some way of that. And that's when, he really starts losing it. I thought it was brilliant the way it was done. I thought it was like a really nice twist. And keep in mind, like, these short films are anywhere, like, they're about 45 minutes long. So it gave a lot. It gave a lot
It
in
really
within
did.
45 minutes. And I was very it I will say, as much as I did love it, it's not my favorite. But we'll get into my
Wow,
favorite
it's not
right
your
next.
favorite?
Look, I love
You're
Alain
doing
Delon.
that to our boy?
I'm
No, I'm
so
just kidding.
sorry, Mr. Delon,
I'm
Daddy,
just
Mr.
kidding.
Daddy Delon.
The other
But
one was pretty good. The other one was very good.
I think with this one, I liked I just feel like there could have been a little bit more in terms of his connection with the clone. And I say that because I love a movie called The Double, which is based off,
Oh,
that movie. So
I've
it's
seen that movie,
where
yes.
the clone, where they're two opposite people, and the shy guy gets really jealous that this, more suave and more charismatic clone is taking up all his opportunities. I just wish we could have saw more in depth as to why he did not like the clone. Because if it's like one thing for him, because if like maybe this clone was doing right or like ruining his name, or even like maybe the clone had a risk of telling the authorities of what he was doing or whatever. I just wish there was more of a reason. Also, what just popped into my head was that corpse scene where like the woman is on the table. You know what I'm talking about? And
Yeah,
they
yeah.
take the knife. That was weird. What was that about?
I think it was just showing how sadistic he got when he was older. Like this person grew into more of a monster.
Hmm.
I thought it was like really. I mean, that was kind of the moment where I was just like, this guy's actually like psychotic.
Insane.
So, I actually give it a 10. That's how much I enjoy
Wow.
it. Yeah.
I'd give it an 8. I give it an 8. I really liked it. I thought I did enjoy some of the directing, but I also did feel it kind of dragged a little bit at times. But I mean, for what it is, I think it's still a great short film, and I highly recommend it. And overall, like I'm just gonna say it, I totally recommend this movie. You get a lot within this movie. I get a lot of different things. I've always been a fan of like the creep show type of stuff.
Mhm.
But let's jump into my favorite, Toby Dammit. Now, Toby Dammit had a little bit of a special place in my heart because I've never seen Toby Dammit before until, this week. But in one of my old videos, I used to do an intro and it was to the theme of Toby Dammit. So I never
Oh.
knew what it was. And I remember looking it up and not being able to find a movie by Federico Fellini called Toby Dammit. So when I was going through and like when it said came up on the screen Federico Fellini, Toby Dammit, I was like, "Oh, finally!" Like I was super excited. And for me, this did not disappoint. And before I get into that, it's an alcoholic actor played by Terrence Stamp, haunted by the devil.
Yeah.
Give me your thoughts on this, Sweet Pea. Is this your number two then? Is this your number two
Oh,
spot
yeah.
for?
Well, we have to talk about one thing that stands out to me out of all of them is the performance.
Yeah,
I
Terrence
thought
Stamp is a very good actor.
I thought he was very convincing. And
Hmm.
I rave about Alain Delon's acting, but in this case, I think, sadly to say, he did blow him out of the water.
Yeah, and like even the makeup, that pale, like sweaty makeup that they did on him, just like even more sold the performance. But he's just kind of all over the place, kind of like this babbling actor who's like, one minute he's slumped in his chair, the next minute he's on stage doing like three different monologues in a row, and it was all very random and very like incoherent.
Yeah.
And isn't there a monologue where he talks about like his dream woman or something like that, describes his dream woman?
Yeah. Yeah. He's
So
very clearly talented.
yeah, and I think also like what I loved about this was immediately from like this felt very different from the first two. The first two felt kind of in the same realm. This was like a whole new take. This took place in a different time period.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
like the sets were completely different. So I like that. It felt very as you would have said it, fresh. Felt very fresh from the other two. But I loved it. I and also the sequences with him driving this Ferrari down these little tiny Italian streets are very well done, and also not something I'd ever expect to see from Federico Fellini from what I
Mm,
have seen from him.
yeah.
And I never understood why director David Lynch said his one of his greatest influence was Federico Fellini until now. This felt like very, very David Lynch-esque, but David Lynch before David Lynch. So I was very, especially the girl with the ball, which we'll get to in a minute.
Mhm.
Um, but so what do you, aside from the acting, what else did you like about this movie?
I did enjoy the story because it definitely I well, obviously the second one is my favorite, but like you said, it was very different and I wasn't expecting that. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? I wasn't expecting the story to go like that. So I it's definitely like I will say it's a close second to the first one. Do you want to get a bit into the details so we can get
Yeah, so
into it?
he's just going across the street, and like even while he's driving, like as a maniac and stuff like that in his little Ferrari, you start seeing mannequins kind of all oddly placed throughout the film. And you get this eerie sense that something's going on. And it's not like these mannequins were supposed to be people and stuff and they were just used as stunts. Like, no, out of nowhere, there was just mannequins appearing. And it was super creepy. And then there's one point where he just goes on this road. He ends up blasting through a construction site, and he reaches to a essentially a bridge with a huge gap in the middle. And he hears people on both sides going like, "Don't do it, don't jump. The detour is this way." Then all of a sudden, a little blonde girl with an orb, I'll call it,
An orb.
just comes out and just looks at him, and something within him goes, "Yeah, I'm gonna go over there." Me, and it's so obvious, but it's the way that it still transpired is still very shocking.
Yeah.
What I was expecting was for, this dude to go off the cliff,
Yeah.
but that didn't happen. This man actually made it. But what he didn't see, and what kind of might have represented the orb. I don't know anything about the devil being represented by a girl with a little orb. I don't know that. But maybe I thought because she was holding this light, maybe it could have represented the wire, the light reflecting off that metal wire.
Mm-hmm.
And to spoil it, he goes over, his car makes it, he don't. He ends up getting decapitated by a metal wire, which the way that they revealed it, very Chinatown-esque. Like
Yeah.
remember the movie Chinatown with the car and the horn and stuff like that? And this one was kind of like just zooming in on the blood on this wire, which I thought was just magnificent. And that's what made me love this, was because I thought I had it figured out. I was like, poor little Toby's just gonna crash in the riverbanks,
Yeah.
But no, he ended up making it, but not all the way. So I thought that was it was my favorite. It was definitely my favorite. Now, what do you think that girl with the orb represented? Because it's supposed to be the devil.
Well, I think we see a lot of horror movies too. Like, creepy children are a mark of evil.
Yeah.
So I think I also think it's brilliant that they used a child, because you could think like, oh, innocence and heaven, and but no, because the devil comes in many forms.
Yes.
So I think that was I don't know if that's from the poem or that was Fellini's
That
take
too
on it.
could. Well, oh, hold on. I just realized something. I need to know what the name of the original story is. It can't just be Toby Damn It.
No, probably
Oh,
not.
it looks like it is just Toby Damn It.
All right,
What?
well,
Okay. That's crazy. But I just love the execution, no pun intended, of it.
yeah. I definitely agree. What did you think about the ending?
Uh, Wait, which part of it? The decapitation or?
Well, yeah, I guess. Like, do you think that what made the thing, or do you think what am I trying to ask you?
It's
Do you
okay. Ask
think
me
that
whatever.
made the whole short film, like that part, or do you think everything else leading up? Does
For
that make
me,
sense?
I mean, I think the lead up was great, but at one point, like when he's just driving around in the Ferrari, like, okay, this dude's gonna crash. But I think for me personally, the fact and the way the last scene was directed is for me what makes it. But arguably, his acting and when he's on stage and everything easily could be seen as one of the best parts of the film too, because he's just a brilliant actor in this movie.
Yeah, I agree. I did enjoy a lot of the sequence of events, because
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's kind of what made it for me, and I feel like the ending was kind of like a sweet little cherry on top. I was like, ah, very cool, very cool.
Yeah, I'm also just looking up real quick. So, okay, so the original title was called Never. Oh! That makes so much sense. The original title of the short story is called Never Bet the Devil Your Head.
Ah, cool, 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 cool.
It wraps around, it makes sense. Fellini, you got some smarts to you, Fellini.
Fellini.
But yeah, like I want to know what the inspiration was for this little blonde girl. So I'm real quickly just looking. I have never read, and I kind of really want to read these short stories now.
Me too. I might
Um,
I might look them up at some point.
but I'm just trying to see why. And you know what too? What really reminded me when I saw this girl and like the blonde hair and the orb, it reminded me almost of like a Japanese horror film. Her
Yeah.
look and everything. It was kind of like Houseu vibes meet The Ring. That's the one that where the girls come out of the TV and like, that one, right? That's what it's
Yes.
called, The Ring.
It reminded me of, it's gonna sound weird, but The Ring meets Poltergeist meets Japanese horror.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the blonde girl she reminded me of.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, she looks like little Heather from
Yeah.
Poltergeist for sure. But yeah, I don't understand why this Satan came in the form of a very creepy blonde girl. Does he mention blonde girl in his like monologue?
Maybe?
He
I
might have mentioned, but she seems like a kid. So the fact that the execution was of a child,
yeah.
I don't think he would have been talking about her. I think it might have just been like a.
Like I said, I think it could have been like I said, the devil comes in many forms, and
Mm-hmm.
it could have been just like a trick. Like, oh, innocence, a little cute blonde girl, and no, it wasn't. So I'm gonna interpret it as that, but could be something more playful.
Yeah.
I don't
And it probably is something that we could if we read "Never Bet the Devil Your Head." It's probably in there somewhere.
Yeah.
But that one is my favorite, so that one I'm gonna give a 10 out of 10. What would you give it?
Give it a 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10. Okay. What for you could have made it 10 out of 10?
Um.
Elaine Delon.
Oh well, I always like Elaine Delon. I think I would have liked to see a confrontation. Even though
Okay.
that's not in a poem, I would have just liked to see like a confrontation of like the devil and him.
Understandable.
I think that's what I was expecting
A
too.
little bit more like he like something that he wasn't just so willingly to be beheaded by the devil.
Yeah, I
Just a
guess
little
that's what I
something.
mean. I guess that like a final like realization of like what was happening. But again, I think that was just my expectation of it. But still great, great short.
Gotcha. And also, fun fact. So apparently, other actors, like there were several actors considered for the role of Toby Dammit, and Terrence Stamp was actually one of the last ones to be considered. And so that's remarkable considering how well he did
Yeah,
it. And
he
I
did
don't
great.
see anyone doing Toby Dammit as good as him. Um, but uh, Richard Burton was considered,
I wouldn't have
and
liked that.
I know, like Richard Burton. There was also Peter O'Toole, which I don't think would have worked well because I think Peter O'Toole at the time would have just been too old.
Yeah.
And then also, Marlon Brando was considered for Toby
Ugh,
Dammit.
maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe he could have done it.
I
I
feel out of all of them, well, Brando can do anything,
don't know.
but yeah, like that one was super interesting. And then in terms of directors, they originally wanted Federico Fellini to still do Toby Dammit, but they wanted another director named Louis Buñuel and Orson Welles, which I would have thought,
Oh,
no offense on Roger Vadim, if Orson Welles did Metzer Stinger, whatever, sorry, I thought that would have been kick-ass. Like, I thought really, like, Orson Welles' version of that would have been stellar.
I agree. I would have loved to see that.
But, yeah, and I'm also a huge fan of movies, anthologies like these, and hopefully we can incorporate more, because there's another one, called The Witches, I believe. Yeah. Have you ever heard of The Witches?
I've not.
And there's another like uh there's The Witches, and then there's another like 60s anthology that actually has Sophia Loren in it.
Oh, we have to check that out then.
I think it's like something 66 spaccio. I don't know what it is. It's Italian, but it's there's other different anthologies, and I totally
Oh,
think we can go through them.
technically, yesterday, today, and tomorrow is an anthology. Technically,
Yes,
yes.
they need to bring back anthologies. I genuinely enjoy like
Bring it back, Steph.
anthologies.
Bring it back.
I
This
got you.
one.
I got you. I got you. I will do it. All right, you ready to lead us into the? Well, wait, hold on. Overall Spirits of the Dead rating?
8 out of 10. 8.5 out of 10.
I feel 8. Yeah, because
Okay.
of Toby Dammit. I feel 8 because of Toby Dammit for sure. Highly enjoyable, and I do recommend it.
Great,
Um,
great.
Lead us into it. Lead us into the meat of this podcast.
Okay, so Interview with the Vampire. Was what am I looking for? Okay, so it's about a vampire telling his life story, which includes love, betrayal, loneliness, and hunger. It stars Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, Antonio Banderas, Kirsten Dunst, and Christian Slater. It is directed by Neil Jordan and is based off a book by Anne Reese. And it came out in
Rice.
it's really.
Rice, isn't it Rice?
I know. I just didn't think anybody had the last name Rice. I was giving her the giving her the benefit like Reese, right? No, Rice. Okay, Anne Rice, and it was made in 1994.
So this is your pick of a film. So why don't you explain why you picked this film?
So I think when it comes to vampire films, the genre has a pretty bad history.
Yep.
Starting with Dracula, obviously that's a classic and everybody loves that. It was still sort of taken as a joke.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go all the way to 1994, not the best films around vampires. A lot of it
And
was
let's be honest, even
very
after 1994, what did we have?
yeah.
Twilight.
Also Robert Pattinson. I just want to say Midnight Sun came out and I'm sure he's like shaking right now in anger. Yeah.
Because
So
now, like, 20-year-olds now who used to wear their, like, Team Jacob or Team Edward shirts when they're 15, I'm telling you right now, they just went through some storage, dug it out, and they're just ready to be a fangirl again. Now we gotta worry about, because he's no longer dealing with teenage fangirls, he's dealing with adult women.
he just
And
wants
that
to be taken
is...
serious as an actor and she threw this out. I'm very upset for him. I'm so
Mhm.
sorry. But no, yeah. So the vampire genre in general is looked at as a joke, in my opinion. And rightfully so, because a lot of the films centered around them are very bad and not good and are usually for teenagers. This was the one
Yeah.
movie, and I'm not saying it's a masterpiece in itself, but it is a serious story. And you kind of get a look at how this man and his life changes, and you go through centuries with him. Um, So for me, it's actually the one vampire movie that's not a joke and is actually very interesting. And I personally love movies that take you through somebody's life. That's just
Yeah.
a personal favorite of mine. So you add vampires, I was like, okay, okay. So this has been my favorite movie for a very long time. One of my favorites, at least, because I think also the Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise partnership worked well with their characters. They played their characters well and their partnership was really really good in my opinion. You felt that. So I
This was
really
actually my first time ever watching it. I had never seen the
did you
movie
like
before.
it?
I did
Oh
thoroughly enjoy
no.
it. Usually I get a little nervous with like 90s style blockbuster films because some of them don't age well at all. And or a lot of them are just primarily action focused, whereas this one you actually had like even though it was a huge blockbuster film, you had great execution, great writing, you had phenomenal actors,
Yeah.
and I thought it was for its time and even today in terms of like you said with the genre very very impressive. It is not my favorite vampire film because my favorite is Let the Right One In, and that
Well, that
is
that is very I feel like that's a whole separate thing we need to talk about.
that's a whole yeah, but in terms of like traditional like
Yeah.
gothic style vampire, this is the one that kills it. This is the one that is like top tier out of all of them. um
It's
I
also
will say
fair.
too, oh,
Yeah.
what were you gonna
No,
say?
no, I was just saying it's also fairly close to the book and I know she's raved about the movie a lot.
Yeah, Anne Rice actually, because I always like reading like little fun facts and stuff like that about movies. Anne Rice loved this interpretation so much that she would actually go and buy out advertisements in newspapers and would be like, "Watch this movie; it's a masterpiece." Kind of tooting her own horn there, but I mean, it is really good.
Yeah.
It's a I think I was I what most shocked me. I always know Brad Pitt was a good actor. And I do feel like sometimes I feel like you have two main actors who in terms of their acting careers have faced some type of injustice. Meaning they are just looked at and they are just given roles based off their looks and based off other abilities, like with Tom Cruise being, his one man stunt team and everything. But I don't ever see them taken seriously for more serious roles like this.
Yeah.
I mean, Brad Pitt, like, I really didn't start looking at him as a great actor until really after um, he won the Golden Globe for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But seeing something like this, it's like, oh no, he's always been a good actor. He's always been a good actor.
Yeah.
So with something like this, I feel like it really showcased what they are. Especially, we always knew Brad Pitt had range. Tom Cruise, very impressed. I do like Tom Cruise as more of a personality than an actor. I like his efforts that he makes in all his action films and everything, but I
Yeah.
never really took him as a serious actor.
Yeah.
And I also say that because I know more of a modern Tom Cruise, not like starting acting / middle career Tom Cruise. So I was extremely impressed with his acting in this because it was truly so out of character for him and what he normally does.
Yeah. I think I really think they embodied the characters because,
Hmm.
you have Louis who turns into this demon but has some humanity in him, and then you have why am I
Lestat.
Lestat, who's completely off the radar.
Yeah,
Like
he is
completely
just
has like
off the rocker.
yeah, and has completely taken this, like, you could tell he's bitter about his
Hmm.
condition. So I think they do a really good job at I have a question for you later that I read
Oh,
on a website,
okay.
and I'm very now I'm kind of thinking about it. Um, but I'm not going to distract from the plot because it is sort of
Okay.
but yeah, I really like also where the story takes you because it's not I want to say most vampire films take place during the transition. Not you meet the person before the vampire and you see his life. Like I
And
think this is
yeah, like it's a lot more well-rounded and you get to see this guy really for his entire life rather than just a glimpse into him becoming a sparkly boy, you know?
yeah, and I think the film does a good job at also giving us a little character development because we also don't get that in this genre too.
Yeah. I really like the fact with Brad Pitt and his character. This was a man who wanted to die and do
Yeah.
nothing but die, and he is now. And it's kind of like it just shows kind of how evil Lestat is because rather than killing him, he gives him the curse of living forever. Meanwhile, clearly this man was on the verge of suicide. Even when Lestat picked him up, he was like, "Just kill me, like just end me." In the beginning, so you could just see how cruel and, like you said, bitter Lestat is from the beginning without even knowing his background, without even knowing an ounce of him. Um, I also think even though Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise did amazing performances, we got to talk about, um, oh my God, why am I blanking on her name? And why is
Little
it not here in the
Kirsten,
mix?
little Kirsten
Yes,
Dunst.
Kirsten Dunst. Yes.
Yeah, she did.
Incredible acting.
I think she was like 11 or something. She did a
Yeah,
fantastic
she was about
job.
12 years old when filming this.
And talk about character development because this is a sweet little girl who turns essentially into a monster herself in a way.
Yeah. And it's also, I wish also what they would have done more in this film, like my only critique is that they have like this little girl, you see her as a little girl, but up to some point she doesn't age physically more, but she's a lot older. And
Mentally.
I wish they kind of showed more of that through the times. Like I didn't feel like the settings in the background of time,
Yeah.
of time being focused changed enough to really emphasize how much older she was.
Yeah, I agree. I think they did it through like her tantrums and her being like, "Why don't I age? I'm literally like been this age for 50 years." But you're right, they could have showed a more mature Claudia. But I
Hmm.
also think they were sort of playing it safe because if
Yeah.
you play a little girl too mature, that's when it gets a little like, uh, that's a bit much. But I do agree they could have shown her a little bit even more clever per se.
Yeah, because she still always acted like a child. like I wish maybe there maybe had been like a change in her speech, like maybe, you know, because she spoke like a kid in the beginning, maybe change her speech pattern, maybe
Yeah.
do a little bit more of that. But overall, she was amazing in it in terms of acting. She was stellar. I will say though, the one downside to this movie is it's very long and it feels so much longer than what it actually is.
Yeah, I will say, you gotta really like if you're not interested in this, then I wouldn't start with this movie because it's on the longer side in terms
Yeah,
of
it's good, but don't watch it on a cloudy day because I ended up having to take a little 20-minute cat nap like in the middle of it because
yeah.
I was just like yawning and I watched it in the dark too, so of course. Um, but what about this movie made you like what? Why would you consider this movie, in your own opinion, like one of your favorites?
Like I said, I am a sucker for movies that show me a person's life, and it they did it in a very unique way. And I think the relationships are very complicated
Mm-hmm.
between Claudia, Lestat, and Louis, because it's a very love-hate triangle. But you understand all of them at the end of the movie. You
Yes.
understand why they're so bitter or upset at each other or angry or lonely. And another thing that this film did very differently, it showed how Louis adapts to modern times. So as the movie ages, it does show you how they adapt because
Mm-hmm.
they go from like 1700s to 1994
Yeah.
and they explain it. And I like also Christian, even though he has a very small role in the movie, Christian Slater's uh character
Yeah, his
because
role was enjoyable, and I liked his reaction to certain things, and when he was talking to, especially Brad Pitt in the end. It was a small role, but it was definitely impressionable. And I actually read that it was supposed to go to River Phoenix, but it
aw,
was when his he had passed away. So what Christian Slater ended up doing was, I think he actually donated his entire salary to charity.
aw, that's really sweet. Um, I also enjoyed the Vampire Council. I think that's what they're called. Or maybe I'm getting that mixed up with
Yeah,
another.
are you talking about like the Theaters des Vampires? You know that whole segment with Antonio Banderas and all that.
I like their role in the movie as well.
I like the fact that they had like this almost all vampire theater where they did all these theatrics and they could kind of like pretend to be vampires on stage. Meanwhile, they are vampires. I really enjoyed that concept. I thought that was really well done. I will say though, the second half of the film, that whole focus on Antonio Banderas and everything like that with his character and Louis' involvement and all
Was
stuff
a
like
little
that
long. Was a little long for me.
long, and it was not my favorite part. It started off really strong between the dynamic of Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt, and I felt like it was very lackluster. I felt like they honestly didn't give Banderas enough to work with. I felt like they could have been more emotion, more something
There could
to
have
it.
been more motivation on why they do what they do because spoiler, they end up killing Claudia.
Yes.
The whole like and I kind of understood like rules are rules, but I didn't understand like what the actual like motivation was besides the fact that oh,
Yes.
we're not allowed to do that. Like it just felt like they were being cruel for the sake of being cruel.
Yeah. I agree. I also just I don't understand why the one character, I cannot remember his name, the kind of like the right hand man to Banderas, the one who was like dancing up on like the brick wall and stuff like that. I don't understand his motives. I don't understand what made him want to do this to this far when kind of Banderas seems to, or what's his character's name?
I forget.
Armand. When
Yeah.
Armand
I was just
um
thinking about he now all I can think about is what we do in the
the
shadows.
shadows, yes. So with Armand, it kind of just, I didn't understand the dynamic between Armand and his like right hand man, and why his right hand man at one point had more power over Armand.
Yeah, I agree. I think at certain points it started to lose like at first you're like very like oh what is this a vampire theater like but then after a while you're kind of just like I don't understand what's everybody doing at this point? Why are you so upset at this person? Why do you kill her? The motivation is very unclear.
Yeah. But overall, I think my only grip with this film is that I wish it was shorter, and I wish it focused more solely on Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt, Lestat and Louis.
Because
Because I
that's
thought
really what
they're,
the heart of the film is, their relationship.
yes, and I think Banderas could have been, like, Armand could have been involved, but not for as long as it carried on. Like, it felt like I was watching almost like an anthology, but the first half meant so much and the second half meant so little.
Yeah. So I got a question.
Yeah, what's up?
I saw something online that kind of makes me. I have an opinion, but I also now I'm kind of like, could it be?
Okay, what's up?
Do you think that Lestat loved Louis in that way?
I thought you were gonna say is, and I was gonna say is gay. Yes, 1,000% gay.
Because the
Uh,
attachment was. I don't think. See, here's the thing though. I don't think Louis shared that attachment. I think he had an attachment to Lestat because the fact that he was lonely.
circumstances.
Yeah, but Lestat, I think, did it because at some point, like, there was feelings.
Yeah, no. I totally thought that. I totally thought I did think Lestat was gay. And I thought that, especially when, and there's one part where he kind of goes for a guy and starts, kind of smooth talking to a guy. Um, that was the scene with the poodles. That
Yeah,
was
I
that was an
remember.
intense scene. But yeah, no, I totally think that. And then also their dynamic with little Claudia as she's growing up was, you know, like a Modern Family type scenario.
Yeah.
So I do think it was that. Now, I could understand for its time, I could understand them not wanting to
But I don't. I
dwell
don't
on
know
it.
if that was the author's intentions either. I actually didn't look that up. If she.
It was actually. It was.
Oh, now
And
I
she
okay.
at one point, because I was reading, because I love them fun facts, she at one point was actually considering making Lestat a woman because she was afraid that whatever innuendos or anything that it had wouldn't do well.
That is extremely interesting. But even with the even what we were given in the movie, I still kind of saw it. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah, no,
what?
and I think you were supposed to see a little bit of it. I mean, it's only natural. Like, if you are with someone for years and years, and there's literally eternities, um, I feel like it would happen at some point, whether it be, a relationship or just several interactions over the course of a few eternities. I feel like it's just, it is what it is, like that's just the type of stuff that would happen.
Yeah, and I know there's a big debate online if Louis felt the same way. I personally don't think so. I think there's a lot of resentment there. So I never saw it as Louis reciprocating or even having any like romantic feelings for Lestat. But I definitely see Lestat having romantic feelings for Louis.
Yeah, and I think it was also, I think Lestat, in terms of the way he viewed Louis, it was very, I don't know, I feel like he
It was
resented
very
Louis in a lot of
possessive.
ways.
It was very toxic and possessive. Like he would always say like I did this for you. I gave you life. I brought you here. You were supposed to be like especially when Louis does end up choosing Claudia.
Hmm.
So it's a very possessive but also like when he does come back there's a lot of like in like rage too.
Yeah. But yeah, like and there have been speculations, but it kind of, Anne Rice did intend for that. She didn't make it obviously apparent, but there are little bits, and I haven't read the book, but this is just what I'm reading based off trivia's. She did kind of give little hints here and there as to explaining that that at least Lestat was gay.
That is
But
very
yeah, which
interesting.
I think, I mean, if they I feel like it works. Like, I feel like it, like, especially like what I don't think works. If they brought in Cher, I could not take this movie seriously. I swear, if they had really brought in Cher to play Lestat and she was a vampire, and like, you know, was just I just could not see it being this way.
Okay,
And
that's
even
kind
like,
of
let's
scary.
be real, if you say like, hey, Tom Cruise vampire, people be like, no. Just like how Anne Rice, when they were like, hey, we got Tom Cruise for Lestat, she was like, what are you doing? You're ruining my work. But then she later apologized over and over again to Cruise and was like, I actually loved you. I'm so sorry. I was so quick to judge.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of, and what I think makes this film very important in terms of film history is a lot of the things that happened in terms of behind the scene. So the actors, when they would do their makeup and stuff, Tom Cruise, it took him 3.5 hours to get his makeup done. But they would also be forced to hang upside down for
Oh my
30
god.
minutes. So that way, when the blood vessels popped in their face, the makeup artist would draw it. So when you see their blood vessels, it looks so realistic because that is their actual blood vessels being traced.
That's inhumane. I don't know.
It's crazy.
I'd be passing out if someone put me on my
It,
head.
it really is crazy. But also, Brad Pitt absolutely hated filming this movie
Oh, that's disappointing.
because of the makeup, the colored contacts, which I don't know if you've ever tried putting in color contacts before. Awful.
I'm sure, yeah.
Completely awful. And then also the fact that this was filmed only at nights, except for that little part in the day. Like, this entire film was probably filmed between midnight and like early morning.
Okay, that
So
is rough, yeah.
I could understand. But they had told him by the time he was like, look, is there any way I can back out? They actually said no, because if he had backed out, the studio would lose $40 million,
Oh my
because
god.
that's how much it would have cost to redo everything. And so because of that, he stuck with the film, which I appreciate Brad Pitt, because as someone who's worked on a set before, something like that is literally every crew member's nightmare, because to have to do everything from square one, and the fact that there's so many things that could be changed. You could be going from working with a really good actor to someone who's horrible. Like, I cannot imagine. And then keep in mind, recasting, redoing pre-production, all that
Yeah, because
stuff.
you're talking about the main person too. You're not talking
Yeah.
about little Claudia or Antonio Banderas, whose parts are clearly important too, but you're talking about like where the story centers around. You have to
Mm-hmm.
find either another fit. And I think personally, I do think they were going for bigger actors because Tom Cruise and Brad
Oh, for
Pitt.
sure.
So
For
you're
sure. This
talking
is
about finding someone else who is most either going to be more expensive because you're asking them last minute, or there's going to be so many things you have to do to find another big actor like that.
of course. And like, even like when you read like how much money, you might think like, oh my god, 40 million. Well, guess what? The sets and everything, because Tom Cruise didn't want paparazzi or anyone, or really even crew members, to see the makeups and everything, because they wanted it to be a surprise. They built private tunnels for the actors to go through to get to set.
Oh my god.
So it's just so much took into effort. And then also the scene with Christian Slater on the bridge. That's the Golden Gate Bridge. So they had to, it was, I think, the first time, yeah, the first film to ever be given permission to close down 2 lanes of traffic on the Golden Gate Bridge.
Isn't that absolutely insane? Can you imagine?
Insane. Absolutely insane. Like, which is crazy, because it's not like, oh, you could do it here. Like, even like, it's not like you could go to Russia and you could pay some cops and you can film on a Russian bridge, you know? This is like, this takes time. So that's where that 40 million number just stems from, which is just insane. But also, one of the things I did not know about this film, never heard of, was, did you know that there was a horrific event inspired by this movie?
What? Really? She wrote it on
Yep.
something? What was it?
No. Inspired by, oh, I'm sorry. Inspired from the movie. Like, literally a
Oh.
horrific incident that took place a few days after it came out.
Oh god, what was it?
Apparently, a couple had gone to see the movie, and the boyfriend became obsessed with it, and that night stabbed his girlfriend and tried drinking her blood.
Oh
Yeah.
Jesus. Oh my god.
Yep. They watched the film together the next day. Literally, I think they saw it the day it came out. The next day, this man had stabbed his girlfriend 7 times in her chest and back and sucked the blood from her wounds. Fortunately, she survived, and the boyfriend was arrested.
I don't even know what to say to that. That's
That's
awful.
crazy. That's crazy. I remember though in New Orleans, I went on a tour, which by the way, if you haven't been to New Orleans, one, go, and two, I extremely implore you to check out their vampire culture. I went to a vampire bar, changed my life. Um, but one of the craziest stories that I heard was in one of the nearby hotels on like the top floor in a penthouse. A guy was on vacation with a few friends and he met these two people who claimed to be vampires. And like they had the weirdest names. Like one of them was like, I think named like Nowhere or you know, something like that. And they ended up, they were like, oh, you want a threesome? And he was like, why not? And he went up and they actually drained him of his entire blood, killed him, and they just drank his blood the entire night. And that was like within the past 10 years.
Dude, that is really scary.
Yeah, vampire culture is real. Like, people might think, like, nah, they don't exist. I mean, like, look, but the culture is a real thing. Like as soon
I
as like
think people.
when I went to the vampire bar, I was like, I don't know about this, but literally I walked in, everyone was wearing black trench coats and playing Depeche Mode. I was like, holy shit, this is a vampire bar
You have
because
to
it
be
had Depeche
careful
Mode and black trench coats. I mean, what else do you need?
because here's the thing. I don't think actual vampires are real, but I think there are people that think they're vampires and do vampire stuff.
Vampires might not exist, but sure as hell, crazy people do.
No, but you just told me that story. You don't think there are people at that bar that were plotting and that are like, "Yep."
Oh, good lord, what if they were thinking about me?
I'm
Oh, that's
sure
a
with
scary
your
thought.
glistening, beautiful, pale skin, they were like,
Maybe no, maybe they were like, she's one of us. She's one of us. We will kill our own kind. Maybe that was it. Maybe that I just got lucky.
Stephanie, you can't go back there."
I also didn't drink anything too because I was underage. I had I had to pay my way to sneak in. I had to pay my way. I was like, I just want to chill. I don't want to drink. I want to chill. And
Safest way to
that's all
go
I
in there.
did was chill. I just sat on the couch, you know, just kind of like did my own little thing.
You
Just had
gotta
a
go
little.
back. If you go back ever, you gotta like completely blend in so they don't see you. So they're like, okay, not her because she's in our outfits. She's got the look, the face is going on. You cannot go in there looking random anymore. You got lucky.
I did get lucky. I did get lucky. I look. I, it's not like I wandered in there alone. You know, I went with like a group of friends and stuff. Also, it was just very weird. Like their bathroom said "to Paris" on it, but when I went in, it didn't bring me anywhere except to the bathroom.
Wow.
But yeah, I think overall, getting back to this movie and what it is, I think it's a really good and entertaining film. It is a bit long, and I do think that some bits of it are unnecessary, but the parts of it that are good are really, really good.
If you want to
Um,
see a good vampire movie, this is the one.
for sure. That
Or
and I'm just
yeah,
gonna plug it in. Let the right one in. Those
we
are top
have to
tier, top
review
two.
soon. We should
Yes,
review
I'm
that one.
gonna add it to the list. I'm totally gonna add it to the list.
Especially since
Um,
October's coming, spooky month.
spooky season. I'm totally ready for it. Um, I can't wait. Just like I think one of the films I'm gonna be most excited to review is I think because we haven't done an animation film yet. I think we should totally talk about The Nightmare Before Christmas because I feel like it is such
Oh,
a classic. And
when
it's just gonna be like the intro is not even gonna be me going, hello everyone. It's gonna be going, boys and girls of everything. Like just full singing it.
we just go back and forth for 3 minutes. The first three
Oh
minutes.
my god, yes. Yes. We'll do a nice little harmony. We have to practice though. But overall, what do you give a interview? Also, one last thing. I kind of realized because I was very confused. I thought it was interview with a vampire.
Yeah.
Now I understand why it's the vampire because at the time it was kind of all done and stuff like that. To the audience, we didn't think Lestat would make a comeback.
Surprise, surprise. Yeah.
Surprise, surprise. So, what do you rate this movie? Would it be a 10 because you consider it one of your faves?
No, I'm going to be realistic. I'm going to give it an 8.5 because it's not a perfect movie. It's not the best, but I really think the story and the relationships in the movie are very, very good. I like movies also. I've said this many times, but I could watch over and over again. And I also put that into my grading. So I'm going to give it 8.5.
I'm gonna go with 8.1. I enjoy it. I like the directing, acting was stellar and everything. Really just didn't wish I needed that nap in the middle of it. But I still highly recommend the film. And this would be totally something like where, despite how long it can feel, if we were having a movie night, let's say COVID didn't exist and we were having a movie night right now with our friends, I would totally be like, yeah, let's watch this movie, because I feel like it is still, despite its length, a really good film to watch with others.
I agree. Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good movie to put on your list for October.
Let's give a check to what we have coming up next. So I know we're kind of breaking away from because we've done a lot of spooky recently.
Yeah.
So
What's next
now
week?
we're gonna be doing some like romance. We're gonna get pretty romantical up in
Romance.
here.
What's next week?
We got 45 Years,
Okay, I don't know
a
anything
short film by called Antoine and Colette, and then we're banking on Alain Delon recently, Eclipse.
about that. Ugh, break my heart. Okay.
As always, shout out to Homeboy James. And if you're
Woo!
like, if you know who Homeboy James is, you just know he's a legend. Same with Sensei David.
Sensei
But
David.
if you want a little title, if you want a little help, a little want to help us out, there's a Patreon page down below, and then there's also plenty of other links. I've written short stories and stuff like that. That all the proceeds for that go to help out with Purple Noon. And yeah, so the next time you listen to us, we will be talking about 45 Years, Eclipse,
Yay!
and Antoine and Colette. We'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.